For the next week, we're going to switch gears. We're going to do Megillas Esther.
Okay.
So let's get the blue books. Yeah, the back of the Chumash. That's where it is. Okay, we're on page 1252. And as I usually say at the beginning of this kind of study, these texts are unlimitedly deep and unlimitedly broad, and I think everyone who comes to it does so out of a certain set of interests and training and background and expertise and certain type of perception. I'm only sharing with you what happens to appeal to me, and by no means is the understanding or the pshat or the way, just observations on one way to appreciate. As you know, the areas that I emphasize are literal reading of the text and using logic to understand that, also philosophical ideas, and also to a certain extent Kabbalistic ideas. And I'm very influenced by the Malbim in general, and certainly in this text, although I don't remember exactly what I took from him and what I added in myself, but a great deal of what I'm going to tell you comes from the Malbim. So, it came to pass in the days of Achashverosh. The opening words of the book are the non-Jewish king Achashverosh. And at the very end of chapter 10, the closing words of the book are, and Achashverosh was a great king, and we have records of his history, and he put taxes on the land and on the islands. So it's a book about Achashverosh. Not all books are like that. Most books are signified by the presence of a Jewish person. No, this is a book about Achashverosh. This is the Achashverosh who reigned for Hodu the Kush over 127 provinces. Those days when Achashverosh set the royal throne, which is Shushan, the capital, in the third year of his reign. Okay, he's sitting in the capital. I suppose that's where you would expect the king to be. 2.5 years into his reign. Something now happens that didn't happen before. And if it tells us 2.5 years in, that means that's important. As we've seen over and over again, facts are not here just because it's an encyclopedia. It's important for the story that it's 2.5 years in. He made a feast for all his officials and servants, the army of Persia and Media, the nobles and officials of provinces being present. 127 provinces. All the elite officers of 127 provinces. How long did it take them to get there? Who was running the provinces while they were away? You know, they didn't have Zoom sessions. Now, what did he do? He displayed his riches. This is an affair of state. He's displaying his riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days. 180 days. You think Los Angeles knows how to party? They're pikers. Nobody goes there for 6 months. He partied for 6 months to show his wealth. What's he doing? Why is he doing that? Why is that important to him? And when these days were fulfilled, the king made a week-long feast for all the people who were present in Shushan, the capital. Okay, 180 days, everybody goes home, but Shushan is the capital of the people who service the institutions of the kingdom. They're the people who are bakers and cooks for the palace, and people who are runners to carry messages, and they're scribes for writing out official documents, and advisors, and all sorts of people who are involved in running the empire. Great and small alike. Here it's not the officers. It's the whole population of Shushan. Now, where is this celebration taking place? In the court of the garden of the king's palace, on his own premises. He didn't hire a hall someplace or do it in the town square. No, it was on his own premises. There were hangings of white, fine cotton and blue wool, held with cords of fine linen and purple wool, upon silver rods and marble pillars, couches of gold and silver, on a pavement of gold and white, and shell and onyx marble. The guy's rich, you know. Even Warren Buffett will pay attention to this. The guy is rich, and it's in his own house. The drinks were served in golden goblets. No two goblets alike. Each one was, what's that place in Texas where they make your originals? There's no doubles. I forget the name of them. That Neiman Marcus, right? Where everything's an original. Nothing's doubled. And royal wine in abundance, according to the bounty of the king, opens up his wine cellars to everyone. And the drinking was according to the law. Law here is das, which means the accepted custom, without coercion. Everybody gets his choice. No one's told what to eat, what to drink. He's over the drinking. So the king ordered all the officers of his house that should do according to every man's pleasure. What's the picture here? What kind of impression is being made? What's the sort of the theme or the thrust here? So there are sources that say that Ahasuerus was what they call in stilted English a pretender to the throne. He didn't have the royal blood flowing in his veins. He was not the son of the previous king. He was not in the royal line at all. Maybe he was like the head of the army who took over because of a need for someone to lead the country. He was not someone who had an established position. And he is courting public favor. It is a theme of this book that Ahasuerus is always afraid of his reputation, afraid of his credibility, afraid of his authority, afraid of plots against him. He's always afraid. He always needs to be reassured. And here, one of the things he's projecting is, it's very good for the king to be very rich, isn't it? Because if the king isn't very rich, then what? Then he's going to depend for financing on others who will then be able to manipulate him in their interests. But he said, no one's manipulating me. I can outclass all the wealth in the kingdom. I don't need anybody. I run on my own. So if I have good intentions and I have good capabilities, you can count on me. I'm not in anybody's pocket. No power behind the throne. No one pulling the strings from outside because he pays them off in the middle. And everybody, I'm here to make you happy. I'm here to do what you want for you. You know, if I invite you to my home for a dinner, you don't dictate the menu, I do. You don't like it, don't eat it, go away, I don't need you, right? I'm serving a free meal. No, everybody gets what he wants. There's an infinite store of possibilities, and you can order whatever you want. What's going on here? For the people in Shushan, it's the shoe shiners. It's the water carriers, everybody. Dovid Katan, great and small alike. This is an attempt to present himself as someone who the people should respect, love, revere, feel happy with, feel is interested in them and cares about them, and is beyond influence. That's one way to read what's going on here. Now, and it looks like, unlike usually, here the English paragraphs, no, they don't all mirror the Hebrew paragraphs. Okay, just on the first page they do, but you can't trust it. Vashti the queen also made a feast for the women. Vashti the queen, who is she? So the sources tell us that she was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. She had royal blood in her veins. He didn't, but she did. Now, the king has a palace. The queen has a palace. They get together from time to time, as you may imagine. He also had a harem, but she had her own palace. She made a celebration for the women. Very tzniustik, the men on one side, women on a different side, right? Where did she do it? Where did she make her celebration for the women? Well, in the royal house of King Ahasuerus. Not in her own. She made it in his house. Because nobody tells Vashti what to do. Vashti is a queen. She has the royal blood. He has money, he has power, maybe he runs the army. That's nice. But she's queen, and she knows the people know it also. She knows the people know it also. So she can go where she likes and do what she likes. She makes the, yeah.
So is there a sense of proper legitimacy or recognition of proper legitimacy within the kingdom itself, knowing we only respect the ones who actually descend from a certain lineage?
Well, let's put it this way. That's what he's worried about. That's what he's worried about. He's worried about his authority with the people vis-a-vis her. I don't know enough about the sociology, but I credit him with knowing the truth about these things. Lineage was very important, and Nebuchadnezzar was a name. So, on the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he ordered these various people, a chamber in French is a room. So this would be like your roommate. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about his closest advisors. Why exactly they use the word chamberlains, I'm not sure. But anyway, his closest advisors were attending King Ahasuerus. Now, here's what he does. He orders them to bring Vashti, the queen, for the king, wearing the royal crown. It says to bring her. What might it have said, do you think, that would have given a different message?
Invite.
Yeah, how about invite? How about invite her? Let her make the... No! Bring her! This is a power play. This is a power play. I'm ordering her to come. I'm sending you to bring her to me. She comes to me because I ordered her to come. His heart's merry with wine. Perhaps he was not quite in charge of his senses. He's setting up a power play in public, in front of all the inhabitants of Shushan, all of them. I send and she comes. Okay? He's spent 6 months trying to build up his credibility and his goodwill with the people. At this point, with his heart merry with wine. Now, here's something that's not on the surface at all, but I think it's fair. Bring Vashti the queen before the king, wearing the royal crown. Really? How else would she come? Would she come without the crown? Wearing the royal crown? I mean, she's certainly not going to come without it. She is queen. Why shouldn't she wear the crown? Why specify the crown? Now look at the next words. To show off to the people and the officials her beauty. She should come wearing the crown to show off her beauty. Really, a crown's a piece of metal that you have on your head. It doesn't make you beautiful. You have a very ugly person wearing a crown. So here, the old tradition tells us, he said, bring her naked with only the crown, wearing only the crown. Bring her naked to show off her beauty to the peoples. What's the message? If this goes through, what's the message? She's here because she's beautiful. You don't have to be a 21st century feminist to feel the degrading element in that. You're a queen, your value is the beauty of your body. Period. What's her attitude going to be? You're crazy. First of all, my value is my blood. I'm a granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. That had nothing to do with the beauty of my body. You don't have that, and I do. I have legitimacy, and you don't. And she may think, I also have brains, I also have money, I also have connections, I also have respect of the people. You're going to come to show off my body? This is a real power play, a really brutal power play to degrade her and demote her. She's beautiful. What did she say? Drop dead. Send back this message to your boss. Drop dead. I'm not coming. The queen refused to come at the king's commandment. Look how the text stresses it. He commanded me to come. Let him drop dead. I don't have to. If he had offered a respectful invitation, showing cover to her, maybe she would have come. But he's commanding me to come. Forget it. And now the king's in a crisis because she has publicly ignored it and rejected it. She's sending a message, I don't have to do what you tell me to do. I'm not subject to your command. You don't rule me. This is now a crisis. He was hoping for a showdown that he would win, and now he's in crisis. Are we together so far? Okay. Now, hand up. I can't see because of my glasses.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you mentioned a commentator said that she was naked. Who's that commentator?
I'm trying to remember. But it's not. I don't remember. But I know it's brought. It's not something I would have been smart enough to make up. Okay, now comes a brilliant piece of spin. So the king conferred with the experts who knew the times. For this was the king's procedure, to turn to all who knew law and judgment. Whenever he made a decision, he didn't make it on his own. He had advisors who told him, what are the customs? How are these things done? Why doesn't he know that? Because he's an outsider, that's why. He didn't grow up in the palace. He didn't grow up in the royal circles. So he doesn't know. And he doesn't want to step out of bounds. Because if he steps out of bounds, he's risking the credibility of the people, the loyalty of the people. He's very careful. He's very careful. Now closes to these 7 people. Actually, the king said, all right, as to what should be done legally. I'm not breaking any laws. But what can I do if the queen refuses to obey my order? The queen Vashti for not obeying the bidding of the king was, the statement, the proposition of the king conveyed by the chamberlains, the order that he gave her. What can be done? I have to do something. I have to settle this challenge to my authority. What does the law allow? Now, Memuchad, who some say was Haman, watch this beautiful political spin. This is unbelievable. He says, it is not only the king whom Vashti the queen has wronged. Don't treat this as a private interaction between you and her. But also all of the officials and all the people in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. Understand the implications of her action as affecting, now you'll see how chauvinistic this is, all the people in all the 127 provinces, by which, as you will see instantly, he means all the men. The women don't count. The women don't count. As you'll see, they don't count. But this is a crime against millions of people. Don't play it as an interaction between you and her. Now, how are we going to do that? How is that? 4, this deed of the queen will come to the attention of all women. See that? Her husband ordered her to come. She said, no, hubby, I'm not coming. Leave me alone. I don't have to do what you say. They're all going to look to her as a model. And they're all going to treat their husbands the way Vashti treated her husband. Making their husbands contemptible in their eyes by saying, King Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought before him, but she did not come. And you see it says commanded again. So, if she doesn't have to obey him, hubby, I don't have to obey you either. You're not better than the king. I'm just as good as the queen. And, says Mamuchan, this day the princesses of Persia, Media, who have heard the queen's deed, will cite it to all the king's officials. And there will be much contempt and wrath. So you tell me, guys, who's going to be angry? The men are going to be angry, right? That's bad, right? Paint it this way, Achashverosh. Say that she has now rendered every man a worm in his own home. The women will ride it over the men. Okay, so now, what's going to happen? If he somehow demotes Vashti, what is this action that he's doing? He's protecting all the men in the kingdom. You talk about populism. This wins hands down. Nobody can compete with this populism. It's not 50% of the kingdom, it's 100% of the ones that count, because the women don't count. Right? And the women are now going to be subject to the men. That's how he says to spin what she did. And that will justify what you want to do to her. That's absolutely brilliant. If it pleases the king, let there go forth a royal edict from him, and let it be written into the laws of Persians and the Medes, that it not be revoked. We'll see that at the end, that's very important. That Vashti never again appear before King Ahasuerus. Number one, she's banished from appearing before him. Number one. Number two, let the king confer her royal estate upon another who is better than she. She's going to be replaced as queen. And not only she's going to be replaced, but the property that she owned as queen belongs to the position of queen. It doesn't belong to her personally. It's not made out in her name. It's like somebody moves into the White House, and when he's voted out, he moves out of the White House. So she too is going to move out, and somebody else is going to be chosen as queen, and she will take over the whole estate. This is still Mamucha talking. Then, when the king's decree, which he shall proclaim, shall be resounded throughout all his kingdom, this is going to be written to all the provinces. Everybody's going to hear about the royal proclamation coming from the office of the king. Great though it be, it's a very big kingdom. All the wives will show respect to their husbands, great and small alike. You'll be the hero of the entire population that matters, the men. You'll be the hero of all the men. Achashverosh, you're worried about your popularity. You're worried about people's accepting you and having reverence for you. This will do it, baby. This will do it. You'll be on top of the world. All the men will be praising you. This proposal pleased the king and the officials. Oh boy, this guy's got it. He's really got it. And the king did according to the word of Mamuchan. And he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province his own script, to each people's own language. That was the procedure for all royal proclamations. As you'll see, this phrase is repeated over and over again in the book. To the effect, watch, to the effect, what's the outcome, the upshot of this entire episode? That every man shall rule in his own home. Just what Mamuchan said. It's my decree that every man in his own home is in charge in his own home. And speak the language of his own people. That's not exactly clear what that adds and what that's about. One commentator has an especially bitter explanation of this. You have 127 provinces, sort of like the EU, only bigger. And the borders are open and people are interacting and there are economic relationships and there are cross-provincial marriages. And you have often a situation where the husband and wife don't speak the same mother language, mother tongue. When you deal, Europeans speak 3, 4, 5 languages typically. So they can communicate with one another, but one is your mother tongue. That's what you learn as a child. That's the one in which you express yourself most clearly. Now let's suppose you have husband and wife whose mother tongues are different. Now they have children. In what language is the mother going to speak to her children? Her mother tongue. That she's talking to her children. She's expressing herself to her children. She's going to talk in the language that's most natural to her. Aha! But then these children will grow up speaking as their mother tongue a language which for the father isn't his mother tongue. And that's going to make it harder for the father to communicate with his children. So the law was, let the mother speak the father's mother tongue, even though it's her second language or third language. So it'll be easier for the husband to communicate with his children. That's particularly cruel. Tell a mother she can't talk to her children in her own heart language. But that was part of it. You're the ruler in your house. Everything goes according to what you want, what you need. Everything serves you. And in that way, he seals his popularity and his authority, and he deposes Vashti, who was a potential competition. He gets rid of her, and he increases his authority over the people. And that's a perfect solution.
Yeah, which commentator is that?
This probably is the Malbim. But as I said, I don't remember. I do this every year, and I didn't look it up. It's unbelievable. And of course, as you see, this is really in the words. Some of it you have to add, but when you see it, it fits the words, I think, perfectly. Okay, now comes a very important line, whose importance is not obvious at all. Chapter 2. After these things, when the wrath of Achashverosh subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. How should we picture this? He's burning angry, and he writes these proclamations, and they're all sent out, and he's mulling it over and working it on it. And let's say in 2 months, he sort of calms down and feels the situation is stable and it's getting back good reports from the provinces, and he's very happy with what he's done. And he's strolling in the palace, and he says, Vashti, I haven't seen her in a while. Wonder where she is. Maybe she's in Acapulco running up the credit cards. What happened to Vashti? Oh, slipped my mind. Sure, now I remember. There was the party, and there was a rebellion. Now I remember. Is that a plausible explanation for this verse? I don't think so. I think he really forgot about poor Vashti and what happened to her. So what does it mean he remembered? The word remembered here means, I don't think you can guess the answer to this.
No, because you gave us to this way that we were discussing when Hashem remembered Israel.
Right, and this is where I took it from. I took it from here.
Yeah.
So what did I say?
I'll butcher it, but I think it was something like he was responding to like a set of information and taking an action accordingly. It's
Right,
something like
he's
that.
making a present decision on the basis of a past fact. That's clearly what it means here. Remember here is not opposed to forgetting. Not recovering forgetting. He certainly didn't forget. Now that shows you that the Hebrew language, even for a human being, what we translate remember can mean making a present decision on the basis of a past fact. When you make decisions, you select past information what's relevant to your decision. Not everything that happened in the past is relevant to every decision. So here, that's better about a human being. When you see the word lizkor, to remember, written for Kadosh Baruch Hu, don't assume that it's anthropomorphic and that it's painting him as something that could forget, because that's not what it means here for Achashverosh. So you certainly use that meaning for Kadosh Baruch Hu. When he says he remembers something, it means he's now making a decision to do something on the basis of that past fact. You get an insight into what Kadosh Baruch Hu's calculations are and the decisions that he makes, which is very important for us to know. And this is true in general for psychological language. The psychological language often has an active application without the emotions behind it or the attitudes behind it, and that's when it's used with respect to Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's that thin meaning of the word, not the deep psychological meaning of the word. You had a question? No, okay. Okay, that's just a bite. I think is a very important thing to know. So, what to do? Well, she's gone, right? Then the king's pages said, they understood his meaning. Let there be sought for the king beautiful young maidens. And let the king appoint commissioners in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they shall gather together every beautiful young maiden to Shushan, the capital, to the harem, under the charge of Haggai, the king's chamberlain, servant, guardian of the women, and let their cosmetics be given them. Then let the girl who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. Wow, the king is blown over. The advice pleased the king, and he followed it. Why did the advice please the king? What is there in this advice which sort of solves a problem for him, prevents the arising of another problem? It's not just that he likes beautiful women. He can have as many of those as he wants already. Yeah.
It's garnering favor with the kingdom, and it's showing the male dominance over the kingdom as well.
Yeah, I think that those are both true, but you're not putting it into the context of his concerns and his. You did it in part, but there's something much more profound here. Yeah.
I imagine they don't say anything about royalty here, so maybe the fact that maybe maiden that isn't a royal blood, which seemed to be the main problem with Vashti.
Okay, he doesn't say anything about royalty here. Yeah, that's good. What else doesn't it say anything about? I gave a whole list when I talked about Vashti. Doesn't say anything about brains. Doesn't say anything about wealth. Doesn't say anything about connections. Nothing. Just beauty. No competition here. When she gets in because she pleased me. And if she doesn't please me, then I'll throw her out and get another one. No more competition. No basis whatsoever for her to stand up and rebel against me. That's what pleased him. You understood me very well. I don't want a repetition of the Vashti story. You see how this all fits together? It's a beautiful pshat. You had a question?
I think it's all you've stated it there. It's that he needs a queen, but he wants one who will not cause him this problem, which put him in crisis to begin with. He needs
100%. That's right. He wants to have no competition, just there as a plaything, right? Okay. There was a Jewish man in Shushan, the capital, whose name was Mordechai, son of Yair, son of Shimi, son of Kish, from the tribe of Binyamin. Now, as we said over and over again, these things are not put in stam. Something about his lineage is going to play a role in this story. We won't see it yet, but it'll be there. Now, how did he get there? Who had been exiled from Jerusalem, along with the exiles who had been exiled with Yehoiah, king of Yehuda, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had exiled. And he reared Hadassah, that is, Esther. Now, we're going to see this phraseology a few times in the book, but you have to ask yourself, what's going on here? He reared Hadassah, that is Esther? Why are you telling me that is Esther? Because nobody knows who Hadassah is? Not a well-known name? And Esther does tell you who she is, so just say she's Esther. Listen, Hadassah, maybe you don't know who Hadassah. I'll tell you who Hadassah. Hadassah is Esther. Then why tell me that she's Hadassah? The words have meanings. The words are including something. She's Esther and she's Hadassah, and both of them explain aspects of her character, and it's something which has to be taken into account. Otherwise, she could have 7 names. Why do I need to put all 7 names in the book? Moses has Hebrew names. Did you know that? His parents gave him Hebrew names. They're recorded in the Talmud. Not mentioned in the Chumash ever. Ever. Only Moshe, because that's the name that he got from the daughter of Paro, and that was the name that characterized him. So when you say 2 names, one after the other, wow, you have to do something with that. Yeah.
At least in the version here for verse 5, there's a Jewish man in Shushan. The whole phrase is bolded.
I'm sorry, what?
The whole phrase is bolded, at least in both in the
Yeah, that's only because there are 4 verses here that before the reader reads them, the Kahal reads them in Hebrew out loud. You see it's bolded in the Hebrew also. But it's not because that way. It's not that way in the text.
I see.
It's just a signal that there are places where the audience reads it out loud before the reader of the scroll reads. He reared Hadassah, his uncle's daughter. His uncle's daughter, so he and she are first cousins. since she had neither father nor mother. Now, there's a peculiarity in Hebrew phraseology which leads some to say that not only did he rear her, but he also married her. So you can read it either way, but he certainly reared her. The girl was finely featured and beautiful, and when her father and mother died, Mordechai adopted her as his daughter. So now, what's going on in the kingdom? The king is looking for beautiful girls. So it came to pass, when the king's bidding and decree were published, when many young girls were being brought together to Shushan, the capital, under the charge of Haggai, that Esther, no Hadassah now, just Esther. Esther was taken into the palace under the charge of Haggai, guardian of the women. And now you will see, the commentators point this out, all the verbs that indicate the proceedings with Esther are passive verbs. She does nothing. She does nothing. She's done two. She's totally passive. She didn't do anything to attract attention that she should be taken into the palace, and she's totally passive. Was taken into the palace. The girl pleased him. She was, literally in the Hebrew, she was good in his eyes, and obtained his kindness. He was motivated to treat her kindly. And he, Haggai, hurriedly prepared her cosmetics and her allowance of delicacies to present her, along with the 7 special maids from the palace. And he transferred her and her maidens to the best quarters in the harem. This all happened to her. Esther had not told of her people or her kindred, for Mordechai had instructed her not to tell. And no one knows. Somehow, no one knows who she is. She's under Mordechai's care, and he tells her, and she does. Every day, Mordechai used to walk out in front of the court of the harem to find out Esther's well-being, what would become of her, and they had various means of secret communication. They certainly didn't get out that there was any connection between them. Now, when each girl's turn arrived to come to King Ahasuerus, after having been treated according to the manner prescribed for women for 12 months, there was a whole year preparation from the time she was taken from, Afghanistan or wherever it was to Shushan. For so was the prescribed length of her anointing accomplished, 6 months with oil of myrrh, 6 months with perfumes, cosmetics, to make her as pleasing as possible. Thus the girl came to the king. She was given whatever she requested to accompany her from the harem to the palace. Any kinds of dress, any kinds of perfumes, whatever she wanted, she could choose for herself. This was a chance of a lifetime. In the evening she would come. Next morning she would return to the second harem in the custody of Shashgaz, the king's servant, guardian of the concubines. She would never again go to the king unless the king desired her. She was summoned by name. So, that was the procedure, night after night, night after night, every night. Another girl, every night she would go to the harem. Now, when the turn came for Esther, daughter of Avichail, uncle of Mordechai, who adopted her as own daughter, again, the same thing, and they take the phraseology, daughter in Hebrew is bas, and one way you describe a wife is bayis. Just put a yud between the bayis and the saf, and you get bayis, which means house, and that's one way of referring to your wife. She requested nothing. Nothing. I'm not doing this. I'm going along with it, but I'm not doing anything beyond what Haggai had told her. That's what she told her to do, so that's what she did. Esther would captivate all who saw her, that is to say, they were charmed by her. Esther was taken, not she went, she was taken to King Ahasuerus, to his palace. In the 10th month, which is the month of Tevis, In the 7th year of his reign. Let's make a little calculation. When was the party in which Vashti was deposed? In the 3rd year of his reign. This is the 7th year of his reign. Last time I checked, there were 365 days on an average year. We're talking about, if it's 4 years, right, plus 65, we're talking about 1,200 girls. Roughly. 1,200 girls, right? Each one night, each one into the second harem. What are you worried about? Breakfast and supper for the girls? He's fabulously wealthy. He's fabulously wealthy. He can afford as many as you like. And he hadn't found one. 1,200 girls is a large variety, a large supply. He's had a lot of experience. He must be very choosy. Very choosy. Now, remember, he wants only one thing, just beauty. If you'll introduce someone to him and say, and she comes from a good family, and so on and so on, that'll be a demerit. That'll be a demerit in his eyes. So maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe this one's beautiful, but she's also smart. Don't want her. No, not interested in her. Right? Okay, so now the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won more of his grace and favor than all the other girls. Notice women and girls. We'll come back to that, Yisashem. So that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen in place of Vashti. Okay. Made her queen. Now, how did he celebrate? Then the king made a great banquet for all his officers and servants. It was Esther's banquet. Who made it? He made it. Not she made it. She made nothing. She did nothing. Exact opposite of Vashti, who made her banquet in the king's palace. No, she did nothing. He made her banquet. And he proclaimed an amnesty for the provinces. He released taxes. And he gave gifts worthy of the king. Okay. He's very happy. 1 out of 1,200. Celebrating. It's a time also to do something nice for the people in the empire, to increase the good feeling between him and them. Maybe. But let's just take a look. By the way, there's no paragraph break here. And when the maidens were gathered together the second time. Another gathering of the maidens? She's already queen. And Mordecai sat at the king's gate. Esther still told nothing of her kindred or her people, as Mordecai had instructed her. For Esther continued to obey Mordecai just as when she was raised by him. So what? What's the order of thought here? He made a celebration, okay, and he gave gifts, he canceled taxes. No paragraph break. And when the maidens were gathered the second time. Why are the maidens being gathered the second time? And then the Megillah inserts what your helpful friendly translator makes a parenthetical remark. Oh, by the way, I just want to remind you that she never told who she was. So the commentators say, there's no break in the thought here. He wants to know who she is. She's his queen. He's charmed by her. He looks at her and everything flees from his mind. But I want her to be my queen. But I don't know who she is. I want to know who she is. So he thinks, how am I going to get to know who she is? She's not talking. Maybe he asks her, but that's it. Even with a command, she wouldn't do that. Maybe her charm prevents him from even asking her. But let's make this into a cause célèbre. Let's make the whole empire talk about it. Everybody be talking. I'm releasing taxes to all the provinces, and I'm giving gifts out to all the provinces. Everybody's going to be talking about it. Surely somebody knows her. Surely somebody's going to talk. Hey, that's my cousin. Surely it'll come out. Nothing comes out. I think this is a miracle. No Jew gives it out, right? And then he says, okay, I'm going to try to scare her. She became queen because of the gathering of all the girls, right? I'll make another gathering of the girls. And she'll be afraid that I'm looking for another queen. That's what I did last time. And then now she'll tell me. But no, she doesn't tell. So this sets up a dynamic of tension between them. And at this point, she's and it says she's commanded by Mordechai, don't do it. Don't do it. Now, I'll add one more remark, and then I'm going to finish for today. So now the question is this: what was Mordechai's intention? What was his kavanah, as we say, in telling her not to reveal that she's who she is? Because she comes from the tribe of Benjamin, which goes back to Shaul, the king. She has royal blood in her veins. She comes from a royal family. So if this is right, then Mordechai is making a mistake. He doesn't understand Achashverosh well enough. So Mordechai thinks if it comes out that she has royal blood, he'll want her because of that. He'll want a queen who's worthy of being queen. Don't tell. The truth is that he wants someone who isn't a queen. He wants someone who has nothing, no saving grace other than being beautiful. But Mordechai doesn't appreciate that. So the very strategy that he uses to make sure she won't be chosen, that's the strategy that makes sure that she will be chosen. Which is the theme of this book, that people's strategies work the opposite way they intend. She has to be chosen, otherwise the salvation of the Jewish people can't take place. He doesn't know that. But here you see that Kodesh Baruch Hu can take a strategy, even of great people, and out of chesed, make the strategy work to the opposite of what they're trying to achieve, even though the outcome is going to be good. So an astonishing piece of logic.
So Mordechai was trying to spare Esther,
Sure, he doesn't want her to be queen,
and it backfired.
and it
He
backfired.
wasn't trying
Yes.
to get her in like as a bug thing?
I'm sorry, say again?
He wasn't trying to get her in as a bug kind of thing? Or that wasn't it at all?
Again, he's
He
telling
was trying to
her,
get her in as like an insider, like a double agent kind
oh, I
of
see
thing?
what you mean. Yeah, no, he didn't want to take that. Interesting thought, that's another
That's what
possibility.
was going on.
But on the contrary, he tells her not to tell. So he's trying to get her not in.
No, I thought he was understanding Achashverosh's mentality.
Oh, I doubt that.
And
I doubt.
Why all of this? Why not? I'm sure she's puzzled. She can do a small white lie.
Why not? What?
Give a small white lie.
small white lie.
Small white lie. I'm sure she's puzzled. Why all this like fuss? Give a small white lie. Make up your.
Because those things can be checked. I come from Uzbekistan. Really? Tell me about the mountains there. My advisors are here. I have 6 of them from Uzbekistan. Tell them where they live. Tell them what the names of the capitals are, and so on and so on. You can't make up something like that. That's easily checkable. You try to make up that you were from San Francisco. See how far you get.